welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam and today we are talking through, my October wrap up. And oh boy, did I read too many books. I didn't even mean to, which I think is like the best part of just going with the flow. Like, I had a few reading vlogs scheduled for the end of the month, a few projects that I wanted to work on, so I knew of a good amount of the books that I was going to read, but a lot of these I had no plans for and just randomly decided to read and pick up, which in turn made me read 37 books in a month, which often feels a little bit crazy. It's a lot, and I totally understand that. Don't hold yourself to my standard. I have a job where I am able to listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've over 3 years worked my way up to higher speeds in an audiobook, so I've gotten used to them at a higher speed. So don't compare yourself to me. I'm just, here to talk about the books that I have read. Honestly, they weren't that great anyway. I had a bit of a dud of a month. It was fine. I think my average rating still came out to 3.5 because I can't escape it. Yeah, 3.5. I don't know how to use words today, but I made my stats on Canva here for you, but quick little rundown. Read 37 books, read 4,387 pages, listened to 100 hours. I participated in a couple of readathons. I did obviously participate in a Literally Dead book club, but those are my stats. Those are some of the things that went on for me in the month. Now let's get into the books. I don't want to make this an annoyingly long book, so God. I don't want to make this an obnoxiously long experience for you guys. I don't want to make a super long 2-hour video talking about all the books. I have a really hard time keeping my thoughts and ideas and opinions about books to a condensed medium. We're going to try and keep this video a little bit on the shorter side. So I'll just talk through the books that I read, what I thought, my ratings, so on and so forth, and hopefully we won't be here forever. We'll see. So the first book that I finished in the month of October was The Novice by Taran Matharu, and this is an author who started on Wattpad, and this I believe is their debut. Could be wrong, but I had read this for Battle of the Booktubers, which I will leave up in the cards for you, wherever it is, so that you can check out my Battle of the Booktubers. Those videos were vlogs that came out on Tuesdays, where I read different books recommended from different friends that, they tried to recommend me the best books. It was a competition hosted by Danny Dabbles. It was a whole lot of fun. I read The Novice because Jess recommended it to me. If you're interested in those vlogs, I'll have them on my channel. And I highly recommend you check them out. They were a lot of fun. We also did a live show last weekend where we talked through all of the tea and the gossip and the drama and everything fun. There was no drama, but it was a lot of fun to just talk about who we thought was who and winning and so on and so forth. I will spoil it for you. I won. I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm a little scared. So I will be going on to the finals. The Novice I did read. I gave it a nice 3 stars. I think it was a nice book. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. I think I just needed the pacing to pick up a little bit more. The book at the beginning is a lot more drawn out, where the second half is where it like really picks up, and I was much more interested in the school and the Pokemon demon type of situation on the other side. There is a competition, like a tournament at the end, and it felt so rushed and sped through, and I love tournaments and books, so I really would just wish we were in there more. But I don't think it's a bad book. I think that it takes a lot from the Harry Potter series, which I think is perfectly fine. I think that we should all be able to steal whatever little bits and pieces of our nostalgic worlds when people kind of suck. So I had no problems with that, but it was so glaringly like in the forefront of my mind while I was reading it that I couldn't distinguish like this book being on its own rather than like taking a couple of elements. It just felt a little bit too similar as a whole, but overall 3 stars. I think it was fine. I don't think it was bad. I had no true issues with it, but yes, The Novice. The next book, oh boy, this one sucks. I read The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and honestly, biggest disappointment of the year? I don't know. I am not a classics girl, typically. I really want to be. I have a lot of classics. I love buying classics at the thrift store because I have a massive years-long project in the works. Who knows when it'll be out, but I've been cultivating a collection for that. Things like Dracula and Frankenstein I still haven't read, and I just know that I need to, but The Phantom of the Opera is one of my favorite musicals of all time, and I think having such knowledge of the musical and what happens there and how the music plays out and just like the story and knowing those characters so deeply in that format, it's hard to move to a different format where there's different priorities. Gaston Leroux didn't write it in a way that fitted my hopes and desires. This is following the Phantom of the Opera in Paris. He is a masked figure who is coaching a Christine Daae after her father's dies, and you know, he's her muse. She's his muse, I suppose, and he teaches her music, and she becomes just phenomenal singer. I think in the no, that was a different book. We'll talk about it. She's a beautiful singer, and the opera itself as a musical is one of my favorites. It's so beautiful. But this, I wanted more depth of the characters. I wanted to learn more about Christine. I wanted to learn way more about Phantom of the Opera. And sadly, this was really just like a pissing competition between the Phantom and Raoul. And Raoul was really the main character when really I wanted Christine to be the main character. So it was perfectly mid. It was perfectly average. The writing wasn't my all-time favorite, but that's always just like an issue with classics and my little pea brain and big words and different English. But yeah, it wasn't, I'm disappointed by it. I wanted to love it, and I did not quite love it as much as I thought I would, but that is alright. It's okay, that happens. And then after that, I finished reading The Forgotten Phantom by Catherine Ann Kingsley. This is the first book in a currently 2-book series, but I think there might be more, and it's all about classic retellings. And this is, of course, a Phantom of the Opera retelling. It is a little steamy, it's a little romantic-y. It's also kind of a retelling in the sense of it takes place 100 years after Phantom of the Opera, so it's like an unofficial sequel where we have the Phantom still making home, but he has forgotten a lot of his memories and isn't quite the same guy, but still is the same guy, if you get the drift. And basically a new Christine arrives, and she is a protege violinist, and so he decides to teach her. And she's also going there because she's a part of a monster hunting community organization where they hunt monsters, and so they're trying to figure out the mysterious phantom of this opera, this theater, and she is sent on the case. She's trying to prove herself, she's trying to find her place in the world, and I don't actually think this is a bad book. I didn't have like majorly big issues with it. It's an average 3-star, but I think that we can root for a villain and it not be incredibly toxic. I think there was just a little bit too much like, these men are so questionably bad that like Christine should just leave, like just go elsewhere, like it's not worth it. These men aren't worth it, especially in the 21st century, like no. No. And so overall I thought that it was fun and interesting, and having just read this, like it's a fun companion to go with it. If you like Phantom of the Opera, I don't think you'll have a bad time. It's just a little steamy time. It's sweet, but also has problematic issues to it. But I read these both in a vlog for the Phantom of the Opera romance readathon hosted by Maggie. So if you want even more thoughts, you can check out that video. And the next thing I read for the Mystic reading vlog that I uploaded early in the month for Mystic readathon hosted by Nell Diamond, and that video, you know, they're all on my channel. I'm not going to link them all. I think we'd be here for too long, and you can only link so many videos. And I did a lot. So anyway, I read A Ship of Bones and Teeth by Karina Halley, and I'm a little disappointed by this one, and I shouldn't be. I really anticipated this one. I was very excited. It's a like Pirates of the Caribbean, Little Mermaid type of romantasy. Karina Halley is quite on the more steamy side. This definitely has a lot of content trigger warnings. It is a dark romance. He does brand her. It gets intense at times, but I also did like them together. I don't think that they were like too awful as characters. I actually didn't hate them entirely. At least reflecting. I don't know if that's how I felt at the beginning. In my video, that's how I felt. But, oh god, it was way too long of a story. I didn't really care about the plot. I enjoyed this, like, revenge type story that was going on. I don't remember the characters' names whatsoever, but we're following a girl who is completely mistreated, and she is the Little Mermaid. She's Ariel, but by a different name. And she wishes to have human legs because she sees this man. She's like, in love, yes please, and it backfires. It goes horribly wrong. This man sucks, and so she ends up getting kidnapped by a pirate, and then they end up together, but they get a revenge mission, and it's a time. But yeah, just 3.5 stars. I don't think it was bad. I just, maybe it's just a little bit tighter, a little bit shorter, but major improvements from Black Sunshine, which is the other Karina Halley that I've read, so I can't complain too much. Okay. Oh gosh. The next book that I read was The Sky on Fire by Jen Leones. Oh girl. Ugh. The Sky on Fire is not a bad book, but it seems to be a standalone. And it felt like somebody wanted to write a duology or a trilogy and then shoved it into a book, and I just didn't love that. I didn't love it. It didn't work for me fully. I think it was trying to do way too much. So it was kind of disappointing. I was really excited for this one, and it's so convoluted. There's so much that happens in it that I can't even tell you the plot of what it was trying to be. I think that there's some nice character relationships, but I just simply didn't care, and there were so many, and there was like so many plots happening. Like, you start in a chase scene in a jungle, and then it leads to like 5 different beats. There's a heist in it. It simply just did too much. It was 3 stars. It was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I don't necessarily not recommend it, but also I don't think that it's like the best book that everyone should go spend their money on. Maybe check it out from the library. One battery changed later. Yeah, The Sky on Fire. It was fine. It tried to do too much. I think if this was split into a duology, it would have been better. Next, I did a reread of Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which I did not grab. Whoops. I reread Caraval. I did a deep dive Caraval plot recap of one of my favorite books of all time. I simply love Caraval, and I will be continuing on with the series. It's 5 stars. I don't really need to hash it out. But because Spectacular came out, and I'm reading that this December for sure, I wanted to do little plot recaps of the series and then slowly make my way, but that has now become a back burner. I guess we'll just jump forward a little bit and talk about Legendary by Stephanie Garber, because I did end up grabbing this one. I did reread this as well, so that I could do the next installment. I will be doing the plot recap for this soon, probably next month, I hope. Just because I didn't have time and another series has taken a little bit of a precedence instead. So I will be, we'll get back to this world soon. I've already done the reread. I have the notes. I have the stuff on my wall. Like, I just have to film it and edit so that we can, chit chat about this. And then I can read Finale for the first time ever, which is wild. But yes, this is the sequel to Caraval, which I do like. This is following the other sister Donatella rather than Scarlet, and I still like it. I still enjoy this world. I still enjoy these characters. I like learning more about the world with the Fate deck, I believe it is called, instead, and it's just like, it's a good time. So yes, I did a reread of Legendary as well. It's still 4 stars, but I liked it. But in between those, I read Antinora by Dory Lumpkin, which is a 134-page novella horror, and it is small town. It is following these 2 girls. It is a religious trauma story. It's very Christian, almost, it's not quite cult-like behavior, but it's kind of a cult just because it's such a small community. But it's like the extremist side of the churches where like people start speaking in tongues and like it's a little bit more performative. But I don't have religious trauma because I was not raised in a church. My mom just kind of was letting me figure out what I needed to on my own. So it didn't hit home in that sense, but we are also following a young girl, Nora and Abby. We're following a young girl, Abby, who's telling us the story of her best friend Nora and what happens to her in this community. And we also have a little bit of young girls trying to figure out if they're queer and if it's sinning and so on and so forth. And I just really, really like this. I think that the writing was really good. It felt age appropriate to Abby, who just graduated high school, and it just really worked for me. I think that this is going to find its audience, and I think it's really going to work for people. A lot of the people that I've seen review it and pick it up so far have had those experiences, and it really hit home for them and was really like therapeutic for them. And so I definitely want people to pick this up if it sounds right for them, and I want this so desperately, so badly for it to find its audience, because I think people are really going to enjoy it. Next was Whoever You Are, Honey by Olivia Gatwood. This is a science fiction, but it definitely is more literary than sci-fi. And it's really hard not to compare this book to Annie Bot, and so it was definitely more difficult read for me in that sense, where I was like, I would just recommend Annie Bot over this, even though they're not really similar stories at all. But in Whoever You Are, Honey, we are following two different women. One who is moving into this suburban neighborhood with her boyfriend and or fiance, I don't really remember, and another girl who is living with a much older woman, who's kind of her caretaker, and they have a nice little friendship. And then these two women meet. It's queer. You should expect that by now. It was fine. It was simply just fine. I didn't feel any which way about it. It was really hard not to compare to Annie Bot. I think that just time-wise, this is also a debut, and it also was released 2024, like a couple months apart from Annie Bot, so I think it just kind of, it's not that it's a bad book, it's just the timing of it was so wrong, because Annie Bot takes the whole, like, AI conversation into a totally separate realm, and so for that reason, like, it was just 3 stars for me. I didn't quite connect to these characters as much, and didn't really care as deeply for the story as I did with Annie Bot, and so that's, that's more a reader's problem rather than the story's problem. The next audiobook that I listened to was To Complay by Ali Hazelwood, which is, I believe, an audiobook exclusive. I don't think that you can get this novella in physical form, which I don't love. I don't love that people are doing this. I don't love that accessibility for everybody is not always available. Not everybody can listen to audiobooks, and so that irks me a little bit. Hopefully that will change, and it will have a physical copy or digital copy at some point, but until then, To Complay, It Takes Two is a game. Never mind. To Complay is a gamer company, enemies to lovers type romance. You've got these two characters, one who has been pining so hard for this man, who has also been clearly pining so hard for this girl, but these two companies that are rivals are fighting over developing a game and end up coming together, so they go on like a little ski resort bonding trip with the two companies, and starts off very enemies, and eventually everyone kind of finds the love, and learns to work together, and it's a beautiful time, and they all have this one enemy, and it's exactly what you expect it to be from an Ali Hazelwood. It is fun, it is classic, it hits the beats, it's got the perfect amount of steam, it's a novella, so it's very quick, and you know what? I don't ever expect anything more from Ali Hazelwood. Like, it's just a good, fun time. I don't need anything more, okay? It was 4 stars. It was fine. Oh, sorry, it was 3.5. Anyway, the next, I listened to a lot of novellas this month, which was cool. The next was one of the 3 literally done book club picks, which was Night Guest, and I'm not going to try to butcher this person's name because that's not fair to them. I believe that they are Icelandic? So yes, they are Icelandic, and this is translated, and I think a lot of people are going to love this. It's short, it's horror, it is spooky, but we're seeing just one narrow part of the story where the rest of it is happening while our main girl is asleep. I want to say her name's like Iona or something like that. And basically the whole premise is that she has like let's call it an Apple Watch, and basically has noticed that she's walking a lot in her sleep. So she's sleepwalking, and that's scary, and she doesn't have any memories of it, and she wakes up with dirt, and I'm going to give huge, gigantic, major trigger warnings for animal cruelty and animal death. I wasn't expecting that, and it really rocked my world a little bit, but that is a big part of it. It is scary in the sense of like having lost control of your autonomy because you're asleep and sleepwalking and you don't know it and you don't know what's going on, and it is a little bit spooky. It didn't quite hit super hard for me personally. It wasn't a story that I was like, oh, I'm so touched by this, but I can definitely see this really resonating for a lot of people and being a little bit extra spooky for other people. So I gave it 3 stars. I think it was fine. I'm really excited. I believe the Literally Dead Book Club live show is going to be today, as the day of this coming out. Is you watching it if you're watching the 10th of November, but today, as in the day I'm recording, the 9th, tomorrow, I believe, is the Literally Dead Book Club at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard, and I'm excited to discuss all of these little novellas. Anywho, moving on. Up next we have Sign Here by Claudia Lux, and I'm gonna be honest, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be, and I don't know why. My friends read this, my besties, a while ago, maybe in 2022 when this came out, maybe 23, I don't remember, but I think Kaylee, Daphne, and Eliza all buddy read this together, and I said I I wanted to. I pretended that I was going to get in on it, and I just read it on Reddit. So, we can't trust me. But I finally read Sign Here. I was trying to get the Book of the Month hat for reading 15 books. I've done it, thank you. Yeah. So, I read this, and going into this, I was like, oh yes, this is going to be a book about a little devil, a little demon boy, and he is trying to get this family to sign contracts so that he can ascend to the next level, very MLM. And so I was really excited about that. And then, like, it wasn't fully that because we were getting other perspectives and there were a lot, and I didn't read along, which I think was a hindrance to me personally. I think just listening to the audiobook at the office, I was like, who are all of these people? The only people that I cared about were these two girls that were at, like, the summer camp, and the ending is wild, and, like, reflecting on this book, it's really good. When I was in the moment, it wasn't, like, incredible. I wasn't gripped. I wasn't loving it. I wasn't loving this book when I was listening to it, but now I'm, like, thinking about it again, and I'm like, wait, actually? That was kind of wild at the end. But yeah, the moments between these two girls were my favorite, where it was like kind of the summer vibe. Definitely not the autumnal horror vibes that I thought I was going to be getting out of this. Not quite spooky. It's definitely, yeah, I don't know. Everyone said it was funny. I didn't find the humor in it that much, but I also had, so one of my big flaws in listening to audiobooks is a man speaking to me for a long period of time, and I do sometimes block them out more than I intend or realize. And so a lot of Peyote's chapters, who is the demon, I think I neglected to listen and pay attention because I didn't care about him and this woman that he had a feud with. And I just was like, I don't care. I want to go back to these coming of age girls at a summer lake. Like, that's all I wanted. So yeah, I don't know how I'm conflicted on this one for sure. I think the ending was solid. I think that the characters were nice. I just didn't fully work for me in the moment. The next thing I listened to was Portrait of a Shadow by Miriam Matuli, and this is their second book, which makes sense that it's the second book that I read from them. I read their debut last year in, I think, October, and I thought it was much better than this. If we're being honest, this is a Picture of Dorian Gray retelling, reimagining, inspired by, and I don't know if me and Picture of Dorian Gray, I don't think we jive anymore. I don't think we're friends until I reread The Picture of Dorian Gray in a quicker span than 2 years or a year or whatever it was, because I'm just disappointed. It's just lackluster. But in this, we are following a girl who is so dumb that if she made the correct choices as a human and a girl, there would not be a story. But basically, her sister goes missing from her apartment, and this young girl says, I'm on the case. My parents don't have hope. They think she's a runaway, but I'm going to find my sister. And that leads this guy who's in her apartment eating, like, waffles or something. He's in her apartment. He's like, oh, I'm the neighbor. I had a spare key. Let me look for her with you. No, girl, you're not gonna go on a road trip with a strange man that you just met who claims to be your sister's neighbor. No. We don't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. That's terrible. It's so unrealistic. So I was just a little disappointed, a little annoyed, but alas, this was simply just a average book. I really did not care for these characters. I did not care for the plot. I was so uninterested. 2.5 stars. Moving on to We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clawier. That's clearly correct, right? This is a debut, and oh my god. It's getting the hype that it deserves. It's definitely getting its flowers. People are really enjoying this right now, and I love to see it. It was not a 5-star for me, like it was everybody else. I think that if I was reading along physically, which I do think this is one of those books that I might do a reread for in the future. I'll get a physical copy, I'll do a reread. The audiobook is incredible, though, I will say. I think she does a really great job. I think knowing that there was Morse code at the bottom of some of the pages that was puzzled together, and thank you, Vanessa, for messaging me what it was when you finished the book so that I could also be in the know. I think I just, like, missed a couple of... it's one of those books that it ends in a way that I was still unsure what was happening, and I think on a reread I'll pick up on even more. I think that's what it is. I think it was a good book. I think just it's one of those books that you have to reread. One of those horror books that you're like, I need more clarification. I want to pick up on the little hints that come along the way, and just, like, I just need it. I really need to do that. Oh gosh. So anyways, We Used to Live Here is about a couple who lives kind of secluded on a street a little bit by themselves. It is a perfect winter read because you get the snowy atmosphere, and one, I think, evening, I don't remember her name right now, but she is alone in the house. Her girlfriend is at work or the grocery store or something, and this family shows up to her door, and he's like, "Hi, I used to live here. This is my childhood home. I would love to show my kids around because we're like road tripping." And she's like, "I don't feel comfortable with that, actually," but then kind of feels the guilt pressure. I'm making up words. She's feeling the pressure from these people to stay and like look around, and then things start expanding and getting creepier and weird, and she just doesn't know how to like tell them no, and she's trying to be like this people pleaser and trying to make them happy, but it's still like crossing her boundaries, and she's uncomfortable, and it's wild. It gets so much wilder from there. I won't expose anything else that happens, but it is one of those stories where you're like, if she just never let the family in, the story wouldn't happen. And normally I'd be like, yeah, no one would do that. Except for maybe me. I did do that once. Austin was at the grocery store, not very far away, and I thought that he was knocking on the door, and his hands were full, so I was like, oh, I'll go help him, because we have a special knock that he does, and I opened the door, and it was a guy trying to sell security cameras, and I was like, oh, no, I don't know what to do in this situation. I was so uncomfy, and he was like, yeah, if I could just see your doorbell, and I'm like, it's a box, like the doorbell ringer is the box. And then he ended up in my house, and then he ended up sitting on my couch and meeting my dogs, and I texted Austin, help, there's someone in the house, and Austin starts freaking out because I wasn't responding to him. It was a whole debacle, and I'm just saying that I'm not perfect, and sometimes I am an anxious person who doesn't know what to do in situations, and I'm bad at saying no. So I do actually understand where the main character is coming from in this book, and I did relate, and it was scary. Luckily, the person who previously lived in this house was my realtor, so I'm safe in that sense, but oh boy. Moving on. The House that Built Horror by Christina Henry. Oh my god, I'm having a seizure. This was so disappointing for me. I don't know what I was expecting it to be, but I think because when you see it come out, it's horror movie, Incidents of the House That Built Horror, and How to Film a Horror Movie and Survive. Like, those 4 horror novels have all been so promoted widely because they're all big authors as is, so you see them all together, and so you think they're all going to be on the same level. Horror movie was 5 stars. Everyone's loving an Incidents Around the House. It's top of my list of things to read. The Craig DeLuey or whatever his name is, I also want to get to that, but the hold is long. So I was excited for this one, and oh boy was I disappointed by this one. This is following a mother who, it's very much in the pandemic, which I think it's just too soon for books. I just simply don't want to be in that time period. But basically, she works for this actor who's much older and had a troubling history with his son and wife. And so, yeah, she's his house cleaner. He's very uptight and overly cautious because of the pandemic and disease happening and whatever. So she goes to clean his house, and she's got a young son, and they're going through hardships because of everything, and she's not making a lot of money, but they're also like getting evicted, and it's just weird. And so she has her son and this guy, and they have a bond, and it's weird, but it goes exactly where you think it's gonna go. Nothing was shocking or surprising, and I was just disappointed by it overall. Yeah, I was just disappointed. It was 2.5 for me. I just didn't love it. The writing didn't keep me hooked. I didn't care about these characters. I truly was like, you all suck, and I don't care what happens to you, but also, like, nothing really happens in this whole book. It's just kind of a story that's told, and since you know what's going to happen and what's going to come of it, it's not shocking or surprising or fun, and I know that, like, it's a horror and not thriller, and so not all horror books need to have shocking twists and revelations and thrills, but this one maybe would have done better if it did, you know? Ooh, the next one, Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. This is a young adult romance that I kind of just picked up on a whim because we already know I'm obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons. We're moving on from it. And basically, this is following a girl, Riley, who's gotten in big trouble because she stole her parents' car, her mom's car, I believe. Maybe her dad's car. She stole one of her parents' car. They're divorced. She stole a car to go to a concert with her best friend and is grounded for life. And her punishment is to work at her father's game store, and she meets like the kids that do Dungeons and Dragons there. There's older crowds that play Dungeons and Dragons. It's just like a very cool small community. This is the first book in a series, and I'm very excited to continue and see where we go with these characters because I just love them so much. We're following a very typical romance beat by beat. Like, everything is kind of expected. It hits the hard-hitting moments, but you also have a lot of these lighter, fun, goofy moments. You're really rooting for these two characters to come together. It's not enemies to lovers, because everything gets pitched as that, but they're not enemies. They don't hate each other, but it's definitely like, you don't belong in this store, and you're only here because of nepotism, basically, and I don't like you for that. And she's just like, yeah, and you're a fucking nerd, so I don't like you. So it's more like that kind of setup, but it's beautiful seeing them all come together because of this game and just like the way that everything builds. And there's also, it's fake dating. I forgot to mention it's fake dating because I don't remember what was in it for her. Oh, she's trying to make her ex-boyfriend jealous, and he is trying to make this girl that plays D&D with them sometimes jealous because she only wants him when he's taken type of situation, like that little toxic high school mess. And it's very cute. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very sweet. And then the next book that I read was Strange Beasts by Susan L. Morris. This was a bindery pick, I believe, which is like the influencers kind of get an imprint and they get to like be along the steps of helping publish books and get eyes on books. It's interesting. I really don't know enough about it, but it is interesting. I read this for my NetGalley ARC reading vlog, and this just didn't work for me. Again, I've not read Sherlock Holmes, I've not read Dracula, I've seen the BBC Sherlock Holmes, and that's it. So I'm not super duper familiar. Like, I get the character of Moriarty, but not a lot. Dracula, didn't know who Mina was. So I did myself a bit of a disservice, like not realizing there would be bits of that going on, but I don't feel like it's a big enough part of the story that I completely missed out on stuff. I don't think the Dracula side of it was really brought in at all, but basically Mina, which is Dracula's killer, there's a nasty bug on my window. Ugh, I hate that. What was I saying? Mina, Dracula's killer, is Sam's mom, and it's weird reading a book where the main character's name is Sam. Yes. But she goes on this little journey with this woman, Helena, and she's the daughter of Moriarty, and they're investigators similar to the Forgotten Phantom. They are a part of a monster organization where they go and hunt things, and there's a guy who's the son of Van Helsing, I believe, and he sucks. But basically, I was really sold because it was like, ooh, a little detective mystery, which I don't really care for mysteries all that much to begin with. It's set in Paris, which was beautiful. I think the atmosphere was stunning, and they're trying to figure out who's killing men in the city, and I just didn't feel shocked or surprised or wowed by any of the mystery. The mystery didn't feel that important to the characters at all times, and this is also meant to be a sapphic romance, and I felt nothing between these two girls. Like, they rarely had page time together, and when they did, it was very like work focus or like whatever. They didn't communicate a whole lot. They didn't have any chemistry. I think that Sam had far more chemistry with the guy in like chapter 4 who makes perfumes. Like, it just, none of this super worked well for me, which I think was just really disappointing more so than anything. Like, I was pretty excited about this when the cover is so beautiful. I was like, yes, this is gonna be great. It was not great. Oh, the next one I don't really want to talk about, which was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Now, I loved A Haunting of Hill House. The Haunting on the Hill House. I can never get the title right because of the stupid show. But anywho's, I read We Have Always Lived in the Castle, and I was honestly disappointed. I don't know what I was expecting from this. I know that it's gothic, it's short. We were following the perspective of like a rather young character. I just didn't get anything from it. It's weird, and I didn't feel like there was any meaning for it though. Like, when I finished A Haunting of Hill House, like, I was going down rabbit holes of theories. I wanted to know everything. Whereas this one, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I didn't have like an attachment to anybody. It was just meh, which is disappointing. So I don't really want to talk about it, but instead we can talk about Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I finally finished this. If you're new to my channel, hello, welcome. I read this because of Battles with Booktubers, and I know that somebody is a little mad at me for it, but this is 3.5. This took me 2 years. 2 years and like 6+ months to finish, which means that it's just not a great book. The ending was solid, but like after a big event that happens that I won't spoil, and the characters get split up, I lost so much interest, and then it's not until they kind of reconvene and action picks up at the end where I was like, ooh, okay, this is nice. But since finishing this, I have felt zero urge to continue in the series. I will eventually, but it's not at all a high priority. I don't know if even 2025 I'm gonna be like jumping to get into the next one. It just took me so long to read. I hate Rowan so much. I think Citra's cool. I think she was interesting. I think I also just had too much foreknowledge of the book going into it that my friends are bad at not spoiling things to me sometimes. So I knew everything was going to be fine. I knew what was going to happen. I was pretty like, yeah. I am intrigued about Citra and the Thunderhead, I believe. I always want to call it Thunderdome because of like raves. Yeah. So I think it's the Thunderhead though. So I'm intrigued to see like how that can progress. But yeah, it was just like a good time. I can see why people like this. It was a very easy read when I did decide to pick it up. I ended up re-listening to the audiobook point to where I was just so I could finally finish it because I had no desire to pick it up at any point. But I finally finished, which was great for me. Okay, next I listened to Yila by Kathy Patakchik. She's got a lot of... The pen name is Les Simmons, which is her dad. This is bad. I don't recommend it unless you're like super into like those 80s paperback horror books. If you really like monster things like Godzilla or whatever, maybe you'll enjoy this. There was just a lot of unnecessary sex, and like I read smut, but I don't need it in this type of book. I didn't care about these characters and their romance. I did not care about this town. I think the premise of like these lizards getting radiation from the atomic bomb that was dropped in New Mexico, like as a test, I think that's interesting. I don't think this is the subgenre of horror for me. I definitely much prefer like modern stuff or ghosty things. I don't really care about a monster of aliens. Nope. A bunch of monster lizards coming to attack with characters that were so bland and unfun. So, it was fine. Next, I read Garlic and the Witch and Garlic and the Vampire. I said those backwards, by Brie Paulson. I think these are fun. I think they're cute. I like the art of them. I think the color palette's nice. But they're not like 5-star graphic novels. They're not like, home hitting. They're very sweet. Garlic in the first book is sent by the witch Agnes and the fellow produce to the castle where a new vampire, the Count, has moved in, and they meet and strike a deal and come to an understanding, and it just felt super safe. There wasn't a whole lot going on. In the sequel, Garlic and the Witch, there's like a weird thing that happens that I won't spoil, I guess, that I wasn't expecting, and it was a little strange, but you know, it's cute, I guess. I don't know. It kind of went in a weird direction, but they're 4 stars. And then I listened to The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates, which it was fine. I will have my fuller thoughts in a video coming soon. I just need to edit my TBR Harvest vlog. It's late. I know. It's coming. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was very just meh. I don't know. I haven't sworn her off yet, but I don't know if me and Darcy Coates are friends. I don't know if we get along. I don't know if we jive. There's just something about... I don't know. There's just something about Darcy Coates that I'm like, we don't click. I haven't tried physically reading a book. I've only listened to audiobooks, and I will be listening to at least probably 2 more. Just to give, a proper taste test. This is the first one. I did soft DNF Dead of Winter, because I was bored, and I didn't care for the characters. And they're just a bit slower for me, but this is a haunted house story, which I was excited about, but, I didn't care about the characters. I think that it was interesting. It's just forgettable, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Next up, finally, at long last, I have listened and read Legends and Lattes. Travis Baldree narrates the audiobook himself, which is fun. I've read it. I know what this is all about. It's cozy. Initially, I was like, yeah, 4.5 stars. And I rated it 5. But it's really like rated 4, but it's 4.5 stars. Cozy books are not my thing. Luckily, this had enough plot to keep me anticipating something to happen. Like, I was ready for something to happen. There was an enemy at play, a bad guy at foot. And I did enjoy getting to know these characters. I would simply just die for Thimble. I would love to have Thimble bake me some treats. I really love D&D and the downtime of D&D, but I think it's really, like, it's hard because in D&D I'm often, like, watching people act, and there's improvised comedy and emotional moments where there's just, like, a little bit more to attach to. They're often so much longer as well, like hours and hours and hours of D&D footage, so you get a different type of attachment to them, and you're also visually seeing it, so it's just, like, a different feeling. When, like, they have sweet tender moments, I'm more, like, engaged, whereas with this I was just like, yeah, live your best life, queen. Viv is an orc, and she's bringing coffee to this small town. She's retiring from mercenary work, and she hires a tiefling who is not considered a tiefling, just a... There's demons that really like to fuck. Succulents. Succulents? That's a plant. Anyways, moving on. Hires a girl to help with the, like, coffee shop, and then has a friend who does, like, the repairs, and then somebody, Thimble, who I love, who makes the delicious treats. I think that this is cozy. I think that it does exactly what it sets out to do. I think that it still has enough action and intrigue to keep you reading if you're like me and you don't love cozy books. But they're sweet characters, they're nice moments. It was good. It was good. We'll jump ahead a little bit. And I also listened to Bookshops and Bone Dust, which will be in my TBR Harvest video as well, so I won't go super in detail, but I didn't like this one quite as much. I think that's just the general feeling for people, is that this one just doesn't quite hit as hard. It's a bone shop, and there's a necromancer, but yeah, it's pre-Viv adventures when she gets injured. It's fine. Ooh, and then I listened to The Twisted Thrones by Daniel L. Jensen. This won't come out until, I think, March in paperback. But if you have Audible, then in the Audible Plus catalog, which you don't pay for, they're just available, all of her Bridge Kingdom series is there for you. You're welcome. Have fun. I love the series. It's so fun. It's not, like, groundbreaking. They're always just a solid 4-star time. You get a duology with different sets of couples and different problems that they go through. And they're my version of cozy. Like, I know exactly what to expect. I have fun with them. I like all the characters. In this, we are following the twin sister of Arwen from the first set of books. We're following his sister, who is set on an arranged marriage. It's a bit of a forbidden love because she's not actually in love with the guy she's said to marry, but his brother, bum bum bum. But also, you know, trouble is afoot, and the ending had me gagged. Oh my god, I didn't know where it was gonna go. They're usually just duologies, so you know, like, something's gotta happen to split the couple up, so they have to come back together later. But girl, I was like, how could they possibly get back together later? Just Daniel L. Jensen always just does it. Every time. It's a good time. They're so fun. I have a great time. It's great. Oh, okay. The next, I read Does It Hurt by H.G. Carlton. I have a whole video of reading BookTube's worst book, which is total clickbait, and I don't think that it worked. I don't know if people like clickbait when it comes to small channels, because people didn't click on it as much. But I read Does It Hurt? It was a time. If you want full thoughts, it's on that video. Anyways, the next book that I read was Woodworm by Layla Martinez, and I will let you watch my TBR Harvest video because I still just don't know how to talk about this. But it is a short novella horror translated from Spanish, and it's a haunted house story. There's a spooky house and some family drama, and I don't know how else to talk about it. So, the next thing, wow, lots of duds. Lots of just, like, mid-books this month. So, next I listened to Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, who I think will get a final shot in 2025 with a reading vlog of, like, reading T. Kingfisher books. Just dedicated, read some, decide if I'm going to read T. Kingfisher again in the future. I really enjoyed What Moves the Dead, and I've enjoyed nothing else. Everything else has been mid to bad. I just don't think her humor works for me. These cozier books of her fantasies I don't think are going to be for me. I don't like cozy books. They're just not my style. So I don't know. We're gonna give her another shot. But Nettle and Bone is a classic kind of fairy tale. We've got a quest. We've got a band of characters coming together. We've got a mission to save herself / her sister. And there's, like, darker elements to it, like a fairy tale would. I think that the romance is a little bit weird, a little out of pocket, not my favorite. And I think that I was going to say Cobblestone Witch, but that's a different book. The Gravestone Witch? Now I have this in front of me, and so now I can't think of anything else. The witch and the fairy are the two arguably best characters, especially the chicken. So yeah, it was fine. But as I mentioned, I read Graveyard Shift by ML Rio. Oh my goodness, I'm excited to talk about this because I don't know how people are going to feel about this. It's pretentious. It's not quite dark academia, but it's kind of in that timeline. It's kind of in that subgenre. It is following a cast of 5 or 6 characters who meet up in graveyards late at night to smoke cigarettes because you can't smoke on campus. They're not students of campus, they just kind of work in the surrounding areas of campus, which to me makes sense because I live in a campus town. And so, like, I don't live on campus, I'm not near campus, but, like, I've been there. I went to school there for a while. So, I get the vibe, but they notice a hole in the graveyard, and then a man burying something, and they're like, what is going on? And it's just, I don't know how people are going to feel about this. It's basically following these characters and seeing them come together, but also seeing them crack a case wide open. And it's amateur sleuths. One of them's a journalist, and she's like, this is what I've been waiting for. And I don't think people are going to like this as I'm like saying it out loud. But I think if you love ML Rio, you're going to just kind of be like, oh, I had a good time. I don't know why I like this. The first half is really like the case. You start piecing things together. Each time we start with a new character's chapter, you get a little bit more pieces of the puzzle, and then, you figure it out. It all comes ahead. And then it's just like the characters being together and like their moments together. And it's just kind of sweet. It's short. I don't think if this was longer, it would be good at all. But I'm really excited to talk about it and see what other people think, because I think I'm giving it 4 stars. And then after that, I read Evocation by S.T. Gibson. And I did actually really enjoy this. I know a lot of people don't like this. It's not a lot of people's cup of tea. I think S.T. Gibson and I are just good friends. Like, I think we just really work together. I don't think that she's led me astray. And I think the worst time I've had so far with a book is Robber Girls, because it just was the only one that I was like meh about. But all the rest have been like high 4 stars. So yeah, Evocation, we're following David and Reese and Moira, and they are all in the occult world. Moira does tarot readings and just like a little bit of psychic stuff, whereas Reese and David are exes, and they are in the same like occult organization together, and they deal more with like the sides of demons and possessions and mediumship. But Reese doesn't have any special talents, but he is married to Moira, and so yeah, we've got a polyamorous relationship and developments and works, but it's a lot about the characters, and it's very character driven. But also I was very interested in David having this looming shadow of something going on, something is wrong with him, and he needs Reese's and Moira's help because they're the only ones that are there to help and understand. And I just love that. I just had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was really sweet. I like the characters a lot. I enjoyed the world. I expect to see a little bit more as time goes on. Yeah, I don't know. It worked for me. Sue me. I don't know what to say. The next thing that I read was It Will Only Hurt a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson. And this is a 3.5. And I liked it. It felt a little bit long, but I really enjoyed the premise of characters going to like this writing retreat. No, this artist retreat and like this artist community where everyone has a different specialty and they're set to like work on a final project basically, but they're all grown adults, but they're also like escaping their real life worlds for one reason or another. We're following a girl whose name I have forgotten, and she is trying to get away from her toxic ex-boyfriend after their breakup. And yeah, she just goes. She is a ceramics pottery gal, which is fun because it reminded me of my friend Melody, and so I was like, Melody, if you want to read a horror book, light trigger warnings for animal deaths, animal cruelty, if you will. Like one of the opening scenes is like her finding a dead possum in her bed, but I never felt like the animal stuff was that bad, but some people in the reviews had issues with it. I've read worse, like The Night Guest I would say it was worse, but also content warnings for domestic and SA abuse and stuff and still on, because we are getting to learn about the past of this community, this neighborhood where people live, and like what used to happen, and our main character is getting like visions of stuff and learning, and it does get a little bit intense at times for sure, but I didn't think it was handled poorly. I didn't think that it was handled, like, it was too much at any point. Like, it didn't make me turn away from the book. It felt like, you know, unfortunately, like reality 100-something years ago, where how women were treated in their marriages. It was icky and gross, and I didn't like it, but I think that it gave a full-fledged story. I definitely think towards the end I was like ready for it to wrap up. I was like, okay, we're being a little bit more drawn out than I would like. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I like Delilah Dawson's writing so far. I haven't had issues with it, but I think out of everything that she's written so far, this is the book that I think will be the most diverse, no, the most mixed reviews coming to. And then I read Cat and Gamer Volume 6 for fun. This is the 6th. It's about this gamer girl who gets cats and learns how to take care of cats for the first time. It's cute. They level up, and like there's a lot of game references, and it's just funny. It's fun. It's reliable. I definitely think that out of all of them, I think the first one, I think the 4th one, and the 6th one have been my favorites so far. So yes. And then I did my Vampathon reading vlog, so that's where these 3 books came. 4 books. Wow. I won't talk about them too much, because that video just is more recent on my channel. But I read A Multitude of Dreams by Martha Rutherford, and this was fine. It's gothic. It's definitely fantasy, but not so high fantasy that it's like unapproachable. I guess people didn't know that this was vampires, but I knew because of the Goodreads tag going into it and a little bit of research, so I was pleasantly surprised when vampires got announced. But we're following a blood plague that has hit the kingdoms, and this castle is isolated from the outside world of what's going on, and our main character is a false identity of a princess and trying to find her way back home and get out of the situation. But yeah, it's very sweet. It's dual POV. I enjoyed it. Next was The Southerners Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, and I'm having a blast. Grady Hendrix, I have not been disappointed. This isn't my favorite out of the 2 that I read. I definitely preferred How to Sell a Haunted House over this, but I can see why people enjoy it. This is a suburban book club coming together because they think of vampires in the neighborhood. It's dark. It's got some insane horror elements that really, those got to me a little bit. Those were, they were intense. There's like rats? No. So yeah, solid, pretty good. And then the only like true 5-star of the month, and it's not even like 5 stars. It's just like it's 5 stars. But not like the best of 5 stars, you know. Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent. I'm really excited to continue in the Crowns of Nyaxia world and finish that up this month. I'm gonna try and binge them all so that I can get to the 3rd book when it comes out. Yes. So I can get to the 3rd book when it comes out. But I had a lot of fun. I really like these characters. I'm excited to see how they will influence the world later on. This is also the 1st book in the Mortal Enemies to Monster Lovers series, so I'm excited to also read the rest of those. It's just solid. It's a good time. I like the characters. I like the world. I like learning so much lore to the gods and the wars and the world and everything like that. It was great. It worked for me. I'm losing my voice, so we will close this out very quickly with I Read Fangs by Sarah Anderson, and it's covered in cat hair. But I Read Fangs. It's a cute little episodic graphic novel. There's no storyline. It's just little plots of the vampire girl and werewolf boy. Her name I don't actually know, but I think his name's like Jimmy. But they're just like normal people, but also dating and also vampire and werewolf, and they're just cute. It's very sweet. Not a whole lot to say. It's a good time. It's not what I thought it was going to be either. So, alas. I don't know how long we've been here. Potentially still an hour. I tried not to yap so hard. I tried to be fast and quick and make this like a timely thing. But who knows? I'm gonna go so I can edit this. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for joining me for Booktober. I truly had a blast. I know that I kind of fell off at the end there. Times have been trying this week. I hope you are all doing well and staying safe. If you're curious as to like more up-to-date day-to-day things, you can follow me on my Bookstagram, which is Sam's Little Corner. I will have it, of course, always linked in the description, but I post more to my stories there, and I'm trying to be a little bit more active in my day-to-day and just kind of do like not quite mini vlogs, but just, you know, be more active and talk and share more of my life a little bit. So you can see me sob over my most recent 5-star. But fun little things like that are happening over there, but also just like when the world burns, we're banding together, and so just finding community over there has been really fun and really nice. And so now I'm here to make my launch back onto the YouTube after Bookstagram, because, oh boy, not Bookstagram, after Booktober, because I didn't realize that I needed a break. I wasn't necessarily burnt out, and I had a lot of fun with Booktober. I felt like momentum and, like, great, but then the world kind of just knocked me right down a couple pegs, and so we're back. I'm excited to make more content. I've got a lot of fun plans for November, so I will see you guys very soon for my next video. I hope you're all doing well, taking care of yourself. Have a nice day. Bye!